This morning, President-elect Donald Trump is preparing for his historic return to the White House.
A crackdown on undocumented immigrants. That vow has left many immigrants frightened and confused. People are expressing their concerns on social media.
To start with this, though, President-elect Trump has said he will move swiftly to implement mass deportations after he takes office.
He created the most secure border in our history, and that's a stone cold fact. The data proves it, and guess what? He's going to do it again.
He said one of his first priorities to make the border strong and powerful. Asked about his campaign promise to deport millions of undocumented immigrants, Mr. Trump insisted his administration would have, quote, no choice.
I got a message to the millions of illegal aliens that Joe Biden's releasing our country in violation of federal law. You better start packing now. And that's when President Trump gets back in office. He's going to designate you a terrorist organization, and he's going to wipe you off the face of the earth. You're done. You're done.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this live broadcast from the ITV Gold studio in New Jersey. You're watching us live on Facebook and YouTube. Ilyas Qureshi, our COO, is committed to cutting through the noise and giving you the facts you can trust. His concept for this show is simple: to provide clear, accurate, and up-to-date information so you are empowered, not fearful of what lies ahead. This show is about giving you the real story, not sensationalizing the changes. Whether you're an aspiring immigrant, a visa holder, or navigating the asylum process, ITV Gold believes in informing you with the truth so you can make informed decisions about your future. As President-elect Donald J. Trump prepares to take office for a second term on January 20th, 2025, there are many questions swirling around immigration policies, especially for the Indian community, which is heavily reliant on visas like the H-1B and other work permits. With concerns about changes to visa quotas, increasing scrutiny on foreign workers, and possible restrictions on family reunifications, many are uncertain about the future. To help us navigate through this uncertainty, we are joined by three distinguished immigration law experts. They will help us address the concerns and provide clarity on what lies ahead. Please join me in welcoming Gaganjot Mundra, Principal Lawyer at Visaverse Immigration Law PC, David Nachman, Managing Attorney at Nachman Phulwani Zimovcak Law Group, and Snehal Batra, Managing Attorney at NPZ Law Group. Together, these experts will break down the facts, dispel the myths, and other much-needed insight into the future of U.S. immigration under the upcoming administration. So welcome to ITV Gold and this live show.
Thanks so much, Edie.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Pleasure. How do you think President Trump's America First approach will affect the immigration process for skilled workers from countries like India, especially in terms of processing times and visa quotas? Whoever wants to answer that.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I guess first of all, I'd like to just tell our viewers Namaste, Adab, Sat Sri Akal, and Kem Cho to everyone who tuned in this evening. And this is a big concern for everyone. And our phones have been ringing off the hook at our law firm since the election. And we've been answering questions like this. And obviously, we don't have all the answers. And we can't look into the crystal ball. And I think I speak for my colleagues by saying that we're going to try to give as much information as we have now. But this is a very dynamic area that's going to be developing over the next several months, obviously. And what we're trying to do is to get as much information, valuable information out there as we possibly can. But I think in terms of the question, Snehal.
I think that, this is Trump 2.0, as I like to say. I think the administration is going to pick up right where they left off with, in terms of dismantling the U.S. immigration system with, in various aspects, not just the humanitarian reliefs, but employment, family reunification, even aspects of the legal immigration process, because the administration's goal is to really dismantle everything. And one of the first things that he's mentioned is, mass deportation, right? And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that, but
we will be talking.
Right. And
it's about the illegal immigrants. So we don't really have to worry about that.
That's not true, because most likely there are going to be policies, through executive action that are going to make it challenging for those individuals that have legal status to keep their status. There's going to be much more scrutiny on all of the applications for extensions. And so it'll be challenging to try to get those approvals. And if they're not approved, you can find yourself out of status. Okay, and so these are some of the things that his administration was pushing the first time around, especially for students, right? We had that unlawful presence memo that if you have a status violation, all of a sudden you are accruing unlawful presence, out of status. And if you are out of status, that could be one reason to put you in removal proceedings, right? So right now we are in a very precarious situation. We'll have to see exactly what happens once he takes office, but I don't think anybody is safe. I think that
but we should not be paranoid, I would say. This is the show is to make everybody at ease, and he's going to do great, I think.
Well, I think that one of the things that, as Snehal is saying, that we're concerned about is, I think that President Trump learned a lot during his first 4 years. And one of the things that we tend to find with politicians is that politicians who are moderate tend to be successful. Politicians who are radical don't survive very long. It's our hope that maybe he learned a little bit from his first 4 years and that he will moderate his views, because the problem, and going to your question about skilled labor, is that unfortunately what ends up happening is that he threw the, pardon the expression, he threw the baby out with the bathwater. And what he did was he affected everyone, as Snehal was saying. And maybe now, with a good focus on the importance of skilled labor, and and it almost came across when he did that podcast in Silicon Valley with several of the individuals who head up those large companies, where he said, "I'm going to give green cards to all the students," and I'm hoping that that's a message that is a good message that he sent and something that he actually does. But what ended up happening right after the election is I got more calls for people to leave the United States and to go to Canada than I got calls for people to come to the United States. So that's something that we also saw during his last, during his last presidency.
A lot of people did say if he wins, we are packing our bags and going to Canada. Did they approach you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Our phone has been ringing, and there has been numerous inquiries how we can be in Canada. And it's not just about skilled workers, non-skilled workers and U.S. citizens as well.
Even they want to move to Canada?
Yes.
Obviously, they did not vote for the guy.
So even they are looking for options. So it's the entire landscape from different walks of life, and they are looking for the options to explore in Canada.
As Trump prepares to take office for a second term, what are some of the most significant concerns for Indian professionals on H-1B and other visas?
Oh, where to begin?
I think for H-1Bs especially, there's going to be changes. Most likely there's going to be a limitation perhaps on the number of approvals, redoing the wage classifications in terms of higher wages for H-1Bs, re-evaluating everything when you have an extension. So we can anticipate that he's going to try to put back in place some of the things that he tried to do the first time with the H-1B, the visas.
Yeah, Project 2025, which some of you may know about, it was a report that was done by the Heritage Foundation, and he distanced himself during the election from Project 2025. But it's a very interesting script about what people think he might do. A couple of the things are a little troubling. One of the things, for example, which affects H-1Bs is that they're eliminating potentially wage levels 1 and 2. If you eliminate wage level 1 and 2, individuals will have to be paid very, very high wages, and that is that could. It really depends upon, are these real wages or...
But I would like to say this is misinformation, Project 2025. When he has distanced himself from that, then why are we even discussing this?
Yeah, well, Project 2025 is out there.
So was Russia hoax?
Yeah. It is out there. It's our hope, again, going back to what I was saying before, that he would, if he wants to succeed as a politician, moderation is going to be the best thing. Project 2025 is clearly not moderate, but what it does do is it lays out an agenda which he started when, during his first presidency, as to whether he grabs onto that or he's now come to realize the importance of highly skilled labor in the marketplace and how that adds to the value of the economic infrastructure in the United States by way of taxes and talent. That remains to be seen. But one of the more interesting things is that as H-1B, if H-1Bs go through difficult changes, Canada grabbed onto that, and Canada actually opened its doors to H-1Bs with a special policy, which maybe Gagan, you can explain how that worked, right?
Yes. So it was last year when our minister opened up H-1B holders in US, they could apply for a work permit in Canada, and it was an open work permit for about 10,000 H-1B holders. Believe it or not, this was all filled up within 24 or less than 48 hours. Every single spot was gone because it was so lucrative for anyone to be in Canada for about 3 years with their spouses, with them, with a free labor market. So that was really attractive for all of these H-1B holders, and we are anticipating that this might again come up next year.
And this is, when you're talking about this, when did this happen?
This was last year in 2023.
Since then, a lot of things have changed between India and Canada. I'm not so sure Canada will be so favorable to Indian citizens.
That's all political, so I never go into politics. Where we take from the immigration standpoint, business is as usual.
But I think what's interesting from the standpoint of the folks that when Canada opened its doors, I think it sent a message. And the message was, we're inviting highly skilled workers because we know that that's what we need to help our economy. And I hope that the politicians in the United States can look at that and say, okay, well, if they're opening their doors, we should be opening our doors. We should be doing the things that we need to do to get the best and the brightest here. So when
we already have the best and the brightest here.
Well, thank you. I appreciate. I know that you're talking about all of us, which is great. But there are so many talented people in the world, and I think not a day goes by when Snehal and I and Gagan see a 25, 30-page resume come over our desks, and we're trying to get these people visas, to get them here quickly, because we know that they're going to add to the economic infrastructure and build groups of people around them. And this is what drives our economy and success. I mean, when we go to work every day, we're not just immigration lawyers, we're actually fighting a battle. The battle is that if we don't open our doors here in the United States to these highly skilled workers, they're going to go to Canada, and that's okay. While I'm sitting here, it's okay. They're going to go to the UK, they're going to go to Japan, they're going to go to Australia, because those countries are finding ways, smart ways to open their doors to get those people there.
How do you foresee Trump's second administration impacting high-skilled immigration, particularly for H-1B? We've already spoken about it, but let's talk about more like tech positions here?
Well, yeah,
I think some of the challenges that I think we're going to see is related to the H-1B, especially students. We talked about a little bit before we got here, the issues that some of the students will face, right, potentially under the administration. But the H-1B is a big part of that, because the typical path for a student when they get to the US is to study on a student visa, transition to OPT, STEM EAD, you know, and then eventually H-1B. So if there are going to be restrictions for H-1B, whether it be wage levels, restriction on numbers, it's going to make it more and more challenging for our students to be able to continue.
What is the number generally which is like allowed for H-1B? Because this is not like an immigration visa, it's like a work visa, right?
Well, the H-1B is a non-immigrant work visa, and there are 65,000 annual visas allotted each year, plus an additional 20,000 for those individuals who graduate with a master's degree from the US. And so from accredited US nonprofit or public universities. And so we're looking at 85,000 annual visa numbers. And last year we had roughly 480,000 individuals that registered in the H-1B lottery. And a lot of them are students, an overwhelming number of them. And so when you have somebody who has trained here, obtained a degree, and now is not selected in the lottery, you know, what happens, right? If they have a STEM degree, then they're able to extend their employment authorization and go into the lottery the following year. But sometimes we have many clients that unfortunately go through year 1, year 2, year 3 and are not able to be picked up in the H-1B lottery. So this is a problem. We're losing individuals to other countries, as David mentioned, because they don't have any other options. You know, maybe one option is to continue education with another degree, but what happens after you have your master's and your PhD and you're still not selected?
And I think the biggest frustration that we feel, and you know, I think that what we see is that our H-1B is the visa of choice to come to the United States and stay in the United States. But the problem is, especially for Indian and Chinese, is that we have these crazy backlogs that we're dealing with, which are significant. The the U.S. State Department reports on a monthly basis through the Visa Bulletin backlogs in the EB1 category. I think it's a year and a half back now for Indian. That's EB1 is individuals who are highly skilled. In the EB2 classification, which is national interest waiver, or an EB2 perm, you're talking about 15 years, maybe more. Wow. So those are very, very significant wait times. Now, that means that these poor people have to wait that long to know whether they're going to be allowed to stay or not. And that's very unsettling. So, and I think that one of the ways in which the new administration could garner a favorable perception would be to attack that particular issue and to maybe deal with that significant backlog and to maybe open the doors to allow these, and these are highly skilled work. These are
so this is not like a Trump-related problem. This has been going on for years.
It is, but that's. President Trump is coming into a political situation where he has both houses on his side. So it's a good time to take action and to do the right thing. And since we're trying to look at the silver lining here, he has an opportunity to moderate and to do the right thing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. With regard to the Biden administration's policies, how do you expect Trump's second term to differ? Are there any elements from Biden's policies that you think might be kept or reformed, or will it be a complete reversal?
Well, I think that as we've seen, and as Snehal has said, I think that Trump 1.0 presented us with an interesting roadmap, potentially. I think that there is clear message about humanitarian programs that exist. I think that we're going to go possibly back to extreme vetting, where there's going to be a deeper dive into people's backgrounds. We're going to be going back. We're unfortunately probably looking at not doing interview waivers. We're looking at not doing stateside visa processing, which was something that we
were excited about.
Yeah, that was really good, and that was something that the Indian community was very excited about. I've taken that trip a couple of times, and it's a long trip. So being able to do stateside processing was very valuable. And there are other things. I mean, I think that what's going to happen is that President Trump is probably going to go back to the Buy American, Hire American philosophy. And I think that that's something that, that's something we're going to have to deal with. Yeah.
What do Indian professionals currently in the US need to prepare for in terms of visa renewals or changes to their status under the new administration?
Well, I think as David mentioned, we can expect that each extension is going to be looked at as a fresh application, and this is going back to a long-established policy under immigration law, which is deference. So this policy says that the immigration agency should give deference to their decisions for prior cases when you have an extension. This policy was pretty much thrown out the window under Trump. He said to the agencies, no more deference, you're going to review each application as a fresh first-time application. This caused a lot of problems. We had a lot of RFEs, denials for many of our clients. When Biden took the office, he put the deference policy back in place. So again, we were a little bit, we were happy that each extension was basically just a review of what's going on, and clients were able to get approvals. But this is something that we should expect. So if you have an extension coming up, make sure you file everything, document everything properly. If you're going to be going for a visa stamp outside the country, make sure you plan accordingly. You may be stuck there outside for a little bit longer than expected.
Yes.
We're going to have, more security clearances, more vetting. Those are some of the things that I think clients should expect.
And I think Snehal makes a really good point, and that is also we did see a lot of denials, but one of the things that's really important for the community, people who are tuned in tonight, to understand is that just because you receive a denial doesn't mean that it's necessarily a denial. You can go back and you can reapply. And we obviously guide our clients on reapplying, and sometimes you have to make several applications to get the favorable determination. For some, it's frustrating. I tend to find in the Indian community that when people get a denial, they think, oh, there's no way I can reapply.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. You just have to be persistent. And persistence sometimes overcomes these denials. And oftentimes you go back several times. Some unfortunately
several times isn't like, how many times are you allowed to apply?
You can keep applying
many as
until
you can, yeah.
until you get the favorable result.
Oh, okay.
So it's
As long
just
as you're still in status.
but it costs money,
Right.
unfortunately.
Yes,
That's
yes.
the problem, is it
Right.
costs money. So we're definitely looking at increased, definitely the legal fees, unfortunately, in an environment like that where you have to make multiple applications or you have to spend more time to overcome those denials, that makes the process go up.
What are the main reasons for the denial?
Arbitrary
Depends on the
reason,
case.
yeah.
Well, specifically for H-1Bs, we saw the, is it a specialty occupation? Are you going to be placed at a third-party site to work?
Yeah.
Is the wage appropriate for this position? Like David mentioned, we have 4 wage levels. So most of the time, newly graduated students are going to be in level 1 wage. That was challenged. So the challenge could be for a number of reasons.
And they would insist like American hire the American first. If he's coming at the same wage, then why do you want to call somebody from India?
Well, they're not doing
That's-
that. The Immigration
yeah.
Service is not doing that. Sometimes you do have this issue at the consulates, the Department of State, when the individual has been approved for an H-1B, but now maybe is outside the country and needs to go for a visa stamp. So this type of pushback you can see at the consulate or even at the port of entry when they're coming in, once they have their visa and they're being inspected at the port of entry, the CBP officer, you know, I've had clients mention that they were asked that.
So if you were hypothetically in the Trump administration, would you go lenient on the vetting process?
I wouldn't say I would go lenient. I mean, I think security of the United States is extremely important.
Right.
So we should be vetting individuals, and we do that. But I think that the unnecessary vetting of certain individuals from certain countries, the delay in that whole process is what is extremely frustrating, because there is a process. Now, when you're throwing in additional requirement just to burden the system, you know, that I think
would be like what?
Well, so for instance, if you have an individual who is applying for a visa outside the country, if you are from certain countries, previously under Trump 1.0, from some of the Muslim majority countries, they would go through your entire history of your travel and your work, even though the individual was previously approved for a visa. So if the individual was already vetted and approved, now why are we putting them through this additional administrative security clearances and delays? So those are some of the things that I think are very frustrating for many of our clients.
How likely is that the green card backlog for Indian nationals will see any relief, or will it become even more of a challenge?
Well, I think we addressed it a little bit. I think that it would be my hope that there have been several bills that have been introduced in Congress. Unfortunately, they haven't really gone anywhere. But then again, the composition of Congress has been different. And obviously getting individuals to all agree has been a challenge. And the reason I think it becomes a challenge is because if one party looks better than another one, then there's jealousy that goes on, and so they would rather kill a bill, which happened to that, I think there was a border bill that President Trump sent a message that he wanted to have it killed because he didn't want the other party to take, he didn't want the Democrats to take credit for passing that bill. Right, right, and so that kind of thing can happen. Now that you have all Republicans, maybe there's a possibility that everyone can agree and get this done, because the immigration system in the United States is clearly broken. I mean, I'm saying that. I think everyone agrees that it's broken. But here's an opportunity for us to fix it.
Yes.
You know, and then maybe we'll get some people from Canada to come down.
And I just want to add that these numbers are quotas that we, as we call them, you know, they have been put in place by Congress decades ago, like the numbers. And so this is why we have such a backlog for our Indian nationals, is because, you know, these particular categories are oversubscribed. So this is not something that the president himself is going to be able to tackle. This has to be an effort by Congress to come together and fix this system that you know, with the quotas and the per country caps.
He's already appointing very powerful people in the cabinet. I'm sure this will get fixed and we'll have the right people to tackle this situation. What are some of the major concerns for families of H-1B holders, especially those waiting for green cards or facing long processing times? Now, let's talk about the families of those H-1B holders.
Well, I think two things come to mind when I, you know, for this question. The first one is, right now, spouses of H-1B holders are H-4 visa holders. They have the ability to work, certain individuals, if they have, their spouses have I-140s approved. And, you know, I think that could be in jeopardy. There has been talk about taking that offline. So that could be one concern for the H-1B.
Meaning, like, is this speculation or is it there somewhere in the
Right now,
policies?
everything is speculation because he's not in the White House,
so
right?
we don't want to scare our audience.
No, we don't.
Yes.
This is not to scare. This is to provide information on potentially what's ahead to prepare them, right? So, so that's a possibility. Because that is something that he tried to do towards the end of his last administration, but could not pass
that. Won't
that.
happen, trust
Right.
me.
I hope that. I hope so. I hope he's listening to this,
yes.
and I hope that doesn't happen. So that's a challenge, and as David mentioned, a lot of these individuals are in this backlog, waiting for their green cards. So it. In the meantime, they have children who are born here, they own property, have mortgages, but they are still in this limbo situation in the sense, you know, as to how long before I can adjust my status and get my green card. So we don't know if that's going to be solved, the backlog or visa restrictions, but we hope that he does.
But I'll quickly add that I've seen a lot of cases where there are H-1B holders and one of the spouse, any one of the spouse can go to Canada also, and I've seen that one of them is processing their permanent residency, which is in US called green card. They're processing that application in Canada while the other spouse is in US, so that way they have their plan A and plan B in action, and who knows how they might turn around and become citizens of either one of the countries, whatever becomes faster for them.
Great. I have a question coming from live. The person is saying, I have a pending I-360/I-765, still no EAD, and it's been 10 months now. So what can I tell this person?
Well, we need some more information on that. We don't know what the basis of that I-360 is. You know, it doesn't seem like 10 months, if you can believe it, excessive processing time. That's pretty normal. So without more information on the underlying basis for that, it's hard to say.
And I think we should explain that like the I-360 is used for a variety of different categories. So it's mostly EB-4, which you have special religious workers are on EB-4, which is significantly backlogged, I think also about 3 or 4 years. We didn't expect a backlog like that with and we also have another category is
special immigrant juveniles,
right? As special J status.
I-360.
You have VAWA cases under that, and you also have special Amerasian cases. So there are a variety of different categories. So it's difficult to know exactly, but I would encourage this individual maybe to, if they have legal counsel, to speak to their lawyer and to just check in and find out what the delay might be, for sure. Yeah.
How do you expect changes to the L1 visa and other work visas to impact Indian business owners or multinational companies operating in the US?
So I remain cautiously optimistic that that President Trump is going to be good for L1 business. L1 are just so the audience knows, L1s are for intra-company transfers. These are individuals who have worked for 1 full year within the last 3 years for an affiliate, a subsidiary, or a parent company, and then are transferring to the United States. We do a tremendous number of L1s. We actually are very fond of what are called new company L1s. And what we like about new company L1s is that we're bringing business to the United States, we're bringing taxes, we're bringing employees. So it's really for the entrepreneurs who are bringing their businesses from anywhere in the world, mostly from India to the United States, and building the business. And so I'm optimistic about it.
Yeah. So there is more possibility of people getting an L1 than H1 because L1 is through your company, right?
It's different.
There's no quotas for L1s, unlike the H1B.
So then people should definitely try for L1.
That's only if they meet the requirement, because they have to be working outside the U.S. for a company
like a multinational company
right.
or something.
Right.
And the green card also comes faster.
It's a
when you have
faster
an
track
L1.
for the green card, absolutely. It's under EB1. So we love those for our Indian clients who have businesses in India because you're bypassing this whole H-1B
Right.
backlogs. In fact, some of the strategies that we put in place, even for clients that are in the US on H-1Bs, sometimes if they have family-owned businesses back home, then we put together a strategy for them to go back home, work in India for the Indian entity, and then transfer themselves to a US by expanding that Indian company into the US. And that ends up being much faster, if you can believe it, than waiting for that green card under H-1B.
Could save them a decade of wait time.
Right.
We call that a transfer out, and it's a
Yeah.
very valuable tool to use. Yeah.
That's like a
Yeah.
secret weapon people should definitely know about. What impact will Trump's approach to merit-based immigration have on Indian applicants, particularly in tech and science fields?
I think we sort of addressed it, but in the tech and science fields, it would be our hope that a nice pathway is paved for students who, who are in the STEM fields to be able to have opportunities, to be able to get long-term non-immigrant status if it's necessary, and then on to the green cards. So reducing these wait times is just really that's probably the most important thing.
There's been talk of ending or limiting the diversity visa lottery program under Trump. How could this affect Indian nationals trying to immigrate to the US through this route?
We don't really do a lot of diversity visas for Indian nationals, and there have, quotas and limits. So I haven't heard too much about this particular aspect of immigration law that, could change, but, we'll see.
What is the potential impact of tougher border security and enforcement policies on those currently in the US on legal visas?
So if you're in the US, on a legal visa in status, then the border security is not an issue that you're really going to come across, right? But border security, is important, and I think that any kind of if the Trump administration is looking to reform the immigration system, that's going to be a huge part of of the deal that he wants to finalize is border security, because there's a lot of talk about the crisis at the southern border and ending asylum, credible fear interviews. And it's actually also taking place under the Biden administration. This is not just something that we've seen under Trump. That's something that's happening now too.
So if 10 million people actually came, how many were given the citizenship?
As far as I know, none, because it doesn't work that way. You don't come and get citizenship.
They were given like health insurance and debit cards and place to stay, and
so
that was the promise, right?
If you enter the country at the southern border, or any of our borders for that matter, and you have a credible fear of persecution, which is the asylum claim, then you can have a credible fear interview. If the government, the credible fear officer, believes that you are afraid to go back to your home country, then they allow you to enter the U.S. and apply for asylum. When you're applying for asylum, our regulations, our laws say that after 150 days of your processing of the asylum application, you're entitled to work authorization. So that's part of the asylum application process. Again, they're vetting these individuals that are coming in, and if they meet the credible fear interview, then they're able to apply for asylum, and with that, employment authorization. There is no citizenship. That's not the process. And the asylum process is a very lengthy process because there's also backlogs in asylum. So at some point, their asylum cases will be heard, and then the judge determines whether they're able to get status as an asylee and then eventually apply for a green card, which then would lead to
But a lot of
citizenship.
Indians also apply for asylum.
I wouldn't say a lot, but there are quite a few that are applying.
A lot of them.
Well, we see clients from all over the world. So the Indian Indian national is not our main asylum applicant. But sure.
With speculation about increasing scrutiny for visa applicants, what are some key steps applicants should take to ensure their applications remain successful under the new administration?
I would say that one is that they need to be very patient. Two is that if they're able to provide us with accurate information in a swift manner, that hopefully will move the case through. But I think that the key is really just to remain patient with the new administration. Obviously, again, as I said before, this is a dynamic process, and they're going to be going through a state of flux. And when an organization of that magnitude goes through a state of flux, it also takes a while for policies to trickle down from the very top down to the lower levels.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see how long it takes for new policies to move down. But other things that individuals can do is just provide accurate information, and the vetting process is also comes from technology improving over the years, and new databases being tapped, and the ability to delve into people's backgrounds. One of the things that I think is going to be more important, obviously, in the years to come, and it'll get more and more important, is also what people post on their social media. Yeah, and as people are posting, you're going to be preparing cases, and officers who are vetting these cases are going to be able to review social media and compare that information. So I think people have to be, and then I think that goes back to what I was saying before, is presenting clear and accurate information. Yeah.
For Indian tech professionals or students in the US under F1 visas, how do you anticipate changes to optional practical training, OPT, and STEM extensions?
Well, nothing has been finalized, obviously, but it's possible that the STEM program could change, including the OPT and the STEM EADs. Again, it's hard to say what's going to happen. I'm not trying to scare the public,
yes.
But there's a possibility because the administration wants to, going along with Trump 1.0, buy American, hire American. So they're going to make it challenging. If they don't pass any policies, potentially the process itself might be burdensome, which would just by attrition, reduce the number of maybe approvals. So that's something I think that we could anticipate.
Yeah, I think students want to know if they go into and do OPT that there's going to be a way for them to be able to stay in the United States. And so this is their pathway to doing that. I think that a lot of people are going to start to look north. They're going to start to look to Canada. Canada's making a big push to get people, but there's that conflict going on where the minister doesn't want so many people. Yes. So, right. But still, the education is, getting an education in the United States or in Canada is highly coveted, and then the opportunity to work thereafter to be able to get that skill set and to hone that skill set is so important.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
I have another question. It says TMCK. I don't know what that is. Let me elaborate. Pending VAWA I-360 and I-765 wasn't concurrent with I-131 and I-485. I want to travel overseas. Shall I file both or wait to see if I-360 is approved? You understand that better.
I think I understand sort of what the person is saying, and when the I-360 is approved, then they can file an adjustment of status, and then they file the 765 and the 131 simultaneously.
Right.
So I'm wondering why they didn't mention the adjustment of status, and why why this person seems to be connecting the travel and the work to the I-360, because it should be connected more to the adjustment of status.
Oh.
Yeah, so the adjustment of status application triggers the ability to file the work authorization and the travel document. Yeah, I hope that's helpful.
I would just say, just be cautious in terms of traveling, especially if some of these things, benefits have not been approved, because, you know, we just don't know what's going to happen. And you don't want to be stuck or abandon your application. So
Right.
before you travel, make sure you speak to, you know, a legal professional.
What should Indian professionals be doing now to protect their careers and immigration status in the face of potential policy changes?
Look to Canada.
Look for Plan B. Have a Plan B.
And we'll have special discount for our ITV viewers.
No, that's actually a very genuine advice, because that's what we've been doing. Rather than pushing yourself right when you have 1 week left in US and then you are struggling to find what's the next option, look for those options right when you have enough time on hand, so that you can make your mind and make a strategic decision rather than under that immense pressure of maintaining status in US and what you're going to do in Canada.
So do you help them get a job also in Canada?
No. We just would provide them with all the options that they can go for. And some of the options are where, if they are eligible, they can be applying for their permanent residency, which is green card equivalent to United States.
Right. And if they just want to like be there for some time, and once their status is clear, they want to come back, what is the process then?
Yeah, absolutely. They can do it. Sometimes we see that a lot of our clients are going for, which is a fancy word, it's called digital nomads. And literally what it means is visitors where you're temporary there in Canada for less than 6 months, and you're still working for your employer that's outside Canada, as long as you're not a competition to any Canadian employer, or you're not taking any Canadian citizens' jobs, etc. You are fine in working from Canada for these employers that are outside Canada, basically. That's what the requirements are.
So a US company?
They could be in India, they could be anywhere else, but they cannot be working inside Canada while they are waiting, or while they are inside Canada, they cannot be just working for a Canadian employer. For that, they'll need a work permit. But outside, yes, they can continue working.
One of the things that we just want to add to that for Canada is that sometimes we put a plan together where if the individual is in Canada, let's say they're in the US on an H-1B, maybe the spouse goes to Canada or the H-1B holder, and they obtain permanent residence, and then they get a Canadian passport, citizenship. That actually increases their options for the US. So once you have that Canadian passport, now you have some other visas that are available to you, even though you're born in India, because you have that Canadian passport. If you only have the Indian passport, then you're limited to our H-1Bs, the L-1 if you qualify, but having that Canadian passport allows you to come in on an E-2, which is an investor visa, open up your own business. It gives you the ability to apply for a TN, which is similar to an H-1B if you have a job offer from a US company. So it opens some other options and doors for our Indian nationals who can get that Canadian passport.
How much time does it take for somebody who goes to Canada to obtain their permanent residency?
That's for you.
It's a process, and there isn't any timelines, because again there is a huge vetting that goes on, and even the eligibility requirements, they have to it's like a lottery which is done after every 15 days, and if you meet the requirements, if you meet the requirements and you have that magic number of the CRS score, then you do have the probability of getting picked up and receive an invitation to apply for permanent residency. And if it's everything straightforward and you think that you believe that you meet those requirements, it takes anywhere from 9 to 12 months from the beginning to the end of the application.
And as Snehal was saying, is that, and we've been doing this for years and years, I think that that's where we're a little different from most US law firms, is that we saw the value of having a Canadian piece, because what it does is it opens the doors for individuals to go up to Canada for that short stay, get that Canadian passport, and then open the door for the E2 or to come down on a TN, and that provides them with the buffer that they need to get that EB2. You know, that EB2 is going to take 15 years, so they can be on a TN for 15 years. They can be on an E2 for 15 years. And there are some other nuances associated with that, because those the TN and the E2 are not dual intent visas, but it becomes a timing issue. But what it does is it offers new options for our clients, so it's very nice.
What impact might the potential changes in US immigration law have on those seeking permanent residency or green cards? What is the timeline for them seeking green card now at this point? Or they are in the process right now?
Well, if you are born in India, because this whole US immigration green card quota system is based on your country of birth. And unfortunately, you know, individuals born in India, there is a huge backlog for employment-based categories and also many of the family preference categories. But the one thing we should mention here is there is this policy with immigration called cross-chargeability. So that policy, what that policy says is that if your spouse was born in a different country, then you can use their country of birth to expedite your green card, meaning you don't have to be stuck in the backlog. So if you are born in India, okay, and your spouse is not born in India, let's say your spouse is born in the UK, then you can use the country of birth for your spouse to move up in line, so you're not stuck in that India quota backlog. So this is called cross-chargeability. But in terms of the processing time, going back to your question, that really depends on whether it's EB2, EB3, under the family preference, you know, from India, whether you are F1, F2, F3, F4. So, but there are significant backlogs for our Indian nationals, and unless there is some revamping of this quota system to take care of these backlogs, you know, we're looking at the same timelines here.
Okay. Would you like to add anything that we might not have covered that would benefit our audience?
I think the one thing that I want to let our audience know is that we don't know exactly what the Trump administration is going to bring in terms of immigration reform and changes, but you know, please make sure that you are engaged, you pay attention, and seek help because it's important to get right information. There are a lot of individuals who deem themselves as experts, and you can get advice online and all sorts of things. So just make sure that you are getting the right advice that's particularly specific to your case, because you know we see a lot of this in our community. You know, my friend or my cousin did so and so, so I can do this, right? So just make sure that you get the right advice.
And I think I'd just like to add that we all, each one of us, are members of professional organizations, and we're sure that you, the viewers, are also members of professional organizations, and we encourage you to reach out to those organizations and to do grassroots advocacy, obviously, in favor of immigration issues. It's so important. So we're a member of GOPIO and PCC, and Snehal is actually on the Governor's Commission for India Commission. Wow. So these are excellent ways in which we can get the message out that the politicians should be doing the right thing by changing the immigration laws in a favorable way.
Gagan, you would like to add something?
I would just say that there's a lot of misinformation about Canada, about the ways that you can get your permanent residency. Don't fall for it. There are numerous information out there for LMIAs that you pay some kind of money.
Yeah,
Don't
they're
fall.
like, this is a,
Yes.
money, the lump
Yes.
sum you pay and you get citizenship
Yes.
next day. It
Run
doesn't
away
happen.
from those advisors, from those people, because that's not true. There is huge vetting out there. It's very competitive to get work permits or permanent residency in Canada, but it's doable. Do it in the right way, you'll achieve it. It's not beyond beyond scope. So that's what my advice will be, that please reach out, have a strategic design done already, even before you come to Canada or US from India itself. Do a strategic planning about what you want to do, how you want to achieve those objectives. You want to come to Canada, once you're a citizen, doors open for US for multiple visas. And that shorten up so much of your timelines to gain green card in US.
So I think there's an add-on to the live question. The person is saying, challenge in court if any drastic situation, if birth citizenship is made.
Yeah, so this is something that, we hear in, the news during the campaign that Trump wants to end birthright citizenship, right? Which is part of our 14th Amendment of the Constitution, that all persons who are born or naturalized in the U.S. are citizens of the U.S. So he wants to get rid of that, and that's actually something that he says he wants to do on day one, and something that he wants to do through executive order, which this is part of the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, so it can't be changed with an executive order. But it doesn't mean he won't try, and if he does, I'm sure it's going to be litigated. Right,
Yeah,
it's going to be challenged in the court.
There have been amendments, throughout. So if
Right.
Yeah.
But it has to go through the formal rulemaking process.
Yeah,
right?
there are only two ways to change the Constitution. One is by 2/3 vote of both houses, or two would be to get a constitutional convention together. So when the framers designed the Constitution, they made it difficult to amend the Constitution. It was intentional by design. So it's highly unlikely that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But as Snehal said, he certainly can try. And I think that you're absolutely right. It's going to be met with
whatever makes America
crazy
great again, he's
litigation.
going to try.
Yeah. Well, litigation drives the economy too. So I guess that's another way to do it, right? Yeah.
As we wrap up today's enlightening discussion, I'd like to sincerely thank our esteemed guests, Gaganjot, David, and Snehal. Your insights and expertise have truly illuminated the path forward for many of our viewers. We appreciate your taking the time to share your knowledge with us. And to all of our viewers, thank you for tuning in. We hope this conversation has given you a clear understanding of the future of US immigration and the changes ahead. Until next time, stay informed, stay prepared, and take care. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.